Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone. To start off, let me ask you questions. How many of you has never ever watched a fairy tales before? Like Cinderella, Snow White and the Little Mermaid? Well, I'm pretty sure most of us grew up watching this movie, right? That will include me too. However, it is easy to overlook the damaging ideologies that all these stories carry. Fairy tale stories mostly rely on misogynistic plotlines, narrow beauty of standards, and fixed happily ever after ending that could only be obtained through a marriage. Today, I'm going to be discussing on the reason why I think fairy tales are not good for children, especially the old ones. To start off, fairy tales are not good for children because it usually have unrealistic happily ever after ending towards the end of the story. We obviously know that it is not realistic in most of the cases in the real life. In most of the fairy tale stories or movies, marriage becomes the ultimate reward at the end of each storyline. And this somehow corresponds to the culture that we are living in which getting married later than anyone else is signs that somehow that you are not dateable or nobody wants to be with you. It also shown that in the society right now, getting married is the final goal that someone have to achieve. However, we knew that there are so many other ways that we can define the success of a person, such as their success in their academic or career. Due to this, it caused people who decided not to get married or not to have a children to feel bad about themselves, to feel like they somehow feel as a person or as a human being. Quoting from Libby Copeland on 29 February 2012, she said that growing up, my mom always told me that I need to find a rich, kind guy to be married with so that I have a better life. I don't want my daughter to grow up believing the same thing that my mom taught me because there are so many ways for you to be happy in life and marriage is just one of it. It might be practical during the medieval time, but in the year of 2020, we should not be encouraging these kinds of behavior or idea anymore. Now that we have talked about how fairy tales have been portrayed the unrealistic life ending, let's move on to where a lot of fairy tales movies are encouraging anti-feminism. Classic fairy tales movies are bad, especially for children, because they promote anti-feminism, in which almost in all of these movies or fairy tale stories, the princess require another man or another prince to save them from whatever harsh they have been through. For instance, in Snow White, she needs a man who she does not even know to save her from eating a poison apple and to wake her up by a kiss, which is another issue because it is a non-consensual as the man is kissing her without her permissions. The kind of idealism in which we are encouraging and we are telling the girls that they actually need a man to save them, it is really bad because as we all know that man and woman are both equal, and even women nowadays sometimes earn more than a man and they do not need a man to save them from their hardship, and they do not need a man to live in a very comfortable life and leisure life. However, in modern fairy tales such as Moana and Frozen is a very good example or instance that could be used to encourage young girls to tell them that they do not need anyone but themselves in order to be successful in real life. Just take Elsa as an example. She does not need a husband in order to become a queen. And towards the end of the story, the true love that Anna be longing for is not from Kristoff, but it is actually from her sister Kiss. That is a true love. The definition of true love in modern fairy tales are not narrow and not specifically between a man and a woman. It could be between siblings and family members. And young girls who watch too much of classic fairy tales might somehow think that they should be dependent on men who think that they are more powerful than girls. Based on the article by Karen E. Rowe, she stated that without us realizing, fairy tales has played a huge part in our life. Classic fairy tales were made to cater society's standard on how women should behave, and it has become a cultural norm that women needs men to survive in life. Move on to the next point in which this is very crucial, where we can see a lot of fairy tales movies, especially the classical fairy tales movies, they are very lacking of diversity. The main reason why fairy tales are bad for children is because typically this movie and stories is very lacking of diversity. This is also include physical and sexual diversity. Traditionally, it always a Caucasian character becomes the lead of the stories. This is the list of common princesses we are familiar with, and according to my tally, there is 9 princesses who are Caucasian, only 1 princess is an African American, 2 princesses are Polynesian or Native American, and 3 princesses are Asian. Based on this statistic, we clearly notice that fairy tales are lacking of racial diversity. We also can see that fairy tales movies often give it a narrow definitions of beauty based on society standards. They always cast and use a very unobtainable figure, and none of the story are actually feature diverse of set of bodies and even colors. This will make every young girl to think that they only certain types of body color or facial structure that are beautiful. We know that human comes in different shapes and forms. We should all feel beauty regardless on how we look inside and out. This somehow is trying to portray that the idea of beauty and happiness is equal and synonymous of being thin, being fair, and being white. And in most of the stories, a plus size character will only be used as an evil character, such as Ursula in The Little Mermaid and Drizella and Anastasia in the Cinderella. Fairy tale has extremely shallow, and they always deliver message that how only good people can find love and happiness. As seen from this quote by Grotholz in Noble Elgar, March 2004, a powerful message from fairy tale stories can cause a huge impact on our girl's life. Fortunately, newer fairy tales and the more evolved versions of the old classics tend to not follow this cliche. The modern fairy tales portray a more gender equality society in which women are being more appreciated and they do not constantly depend on males. Thus, referring to all the points I have presented, I strongly believe that the most classic fairy tales are not good for children. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you took time to be here and listen to my presentation. Thank you. That's all from me.